Okay, everyone, good morning. It is Thursday morning, and this is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way with Hamish and Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Hiya, how you doing? You all good?
Yeah, I'd say so, Ryan. I'm just ticking down the days till Sunday, and yeah, just can't wait for kickoff at this stage.
Yeah, I'm completely the same. It feels like another one of these long weeks. As much as I talk about it's good for Celtic having the whole week to rest and recover and recuperate. They do take ages from one game to the next. It feels like forever ago since the Celtic were last playing, since they were last at home to Hibs in the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup. That does feel like a while ago, but now we're getting there. It's 3 days away until the Rangers game at Celtic Park. We've seen the nets being erected. We can see what they're going to be looking like on Sunday afternoon. Jota spoke to the media, or spoke to Celtic TV rather. So it feels like things are just beginning to heat up ever so slightly ahead of the big one on Sunday. Looking forward to it.
Should say you're not talking about the nets that will be scoring multiple goals in on Sunday. It's another kind of net, but we'll come on to that. First of all, a quick word from our sponsor. They are, of course, S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. They've got thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and the surrounding areas, making sure that you'll find the one you need and want at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. s1jobs.com. Yeah, what's on your mind today, Ryan?
I would say just this Glasgow derby that's upcoming. The problem, as I said before, with this week is that they're so drawn out and that there's little to talk about up until about a day or two before the game. But I think there's that excitement, there's that expectancy that Celtic not necessarily are going for revenge, but they'll right a wrong that happened in January at the very start of this year. It happened at Ibrox. The more you think about that game, and I spoke about it on the show that I was on earlier this week, it was such an anomaly of a game. Celtic just were not at the races whatsoever, and because of that, Rangers were able to take advantage. So I treated it as if it was a European game. I know Rangers are a lot better playing in Europe than they are domestically. It's almost as if they treated that as a European game rather, and Celtic were at the other end of that, unfortunately. But it's at home this weekend. You know, Celtic Park. There will be Rangers fans in attendance, but the vast majority of spectators will be Celtic. So I'm expecting Celtic to come out and really make a statement, really underline that they are the dominant force and still will be the dominant force in Scottish football. The best way to do that is by winning a Glasgow derby comfortably, and I believe that they will do that on Sunday.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching, just to kind of whet the appetite a little bit, I was watching the first derby of this season, the one we won 3-0 at the start of the campaign. And I think, there's obviously been a lot of really good Celtic performances this season, including in Europe. But I think that day was a pretty kind of underrated performance, the way we played that day, the way we completely battered them in the first half and could have scored 4 or 5 goals in that first half alone. And then I went back and watched the last league derby of last season, the one after the split, when we virtually secured the league title. Again at Celtic Park, and we were really dominant in that match. And even the one earlier in the season, where Rangers did have a few moments, but the one we won 2-1 at Christmas time. So our recent record at home in these games is really strong. And it does fill you with confidence that if Celtic turn up and we move the ball about well and have them penned in, I think we'll be absolutely fine on Sunday. But you're right, you just know that Celtic are ultra focused this week. It's very notable to me that there's not a lot to talk about, really. And I know I'm not massively selling this show. Don't worry, there is stuff to talk about we'll come on to, but not much comes out of the Celtic camp in the lead up to these games because they're just so focused, and you don't get any major headlines or quotes given to the media. Celtic do their talking on the pitch, and hopefully we see that again on Sunday. Morning, everyone. I've not even said hi to you. Charlie wondering if we beat them, who do we win the league against? I think potentially looking like St Johnstone away if we win this weekend, but there might also be a chance that Rangers do it for us with potentially dropping points in one of their games. But we can have a wee look at that later in the week. Henry McClarson wondering, Forrest and Bernardo status. Certainly Bernardo not expected to make the game, I think, back after the international break. James Forrest, we've not really heard much on, have we?
We haven't, no. There's not been that much talk about him. There's been a couple of updates here and there where he's saying that he's back out on the grass, he's back out training maybe individually, but nothing to say that he's training with the team as of yet, and certainly not for the weekend. As much as he would be a handy player to have coming off the bench, I don't think he'll be making any sort of appearance on Sunday against Rangers, apart from maybe being in the stand watching the game. That'll be the only appearance that he'll make.
Yeah. So what is the Jota stuff yesterday? It was a Celtic TV interview, pretty short interview, chatting a bit about his first few weeks back at the club, because he's kind of slipped into things pretty naturally. I don't feel like many people are actually talking about Jota, which is crazy to think that how amazing he was first time around and how well he started this time around. You'd think there'd be more hype around him. I think the simple explanation is everyone's talking about someone else, and it's Dies and Maida. So Jota's kind of going a little bit under the radar, and people aren't discussing him too much. So it was good to actually hear from him yesterday from Celtic TV. Nothing major, earth-shattering stuff, to be honest. But speaking a bit about Brendan Rodgers and the fact that he's really enjoyed working under him so far, and he's given responsibility, but also freedom to do things. Talking up the derby on Sunday, going through some of his memories of previous derbies, and I know you're expecting a big game from Jota on Sunday. So what did you make of what he had to say?
I just expect a big game from Celtic's wingers in general, because that's where a lot of the joy will come from for Celtic at the weekend. I would say, particularly against Rangers fullbacks, depending on who plays there, whether it's going to be Yilmaz, Tavernier, or anybody else that'll play.
You
for
ran
Sterling,
out of players there, didn't you?
Yeah, I really did. I was like Alan Shearer the other night, trying to say Kvaratskhelia, and just ended up saying him instead of Kvaratskhelia. Dujon Sterling as well can play in those positions. So it'll be interesting to see who they actually deploy in those areas. Interesting to see where they play Tavernier in particular, because he's played as a centre back past couple of games for Rangers. Dies Maida's played as a centre forward. It's almost as if he's tracking him without even playing against them. He's got his own ways about him, and I'm sure he'll want to come up against Tavernier because he's had a lot of joy in the past against the Rangers captain. But yeah, Jota's interview, he's just a guy that just brings about confidence. He's confident with everything that he's saying, good or bad, positive or negative, whatever he's talking about. He was speaking about how Brendan Rodgers gives him confidence to play his own game. He's enjoyed working under Brendan Rodgers, and I thought that this was going to be the case actually between the two, because Jota was a player that I was really excited for Brendan Rodgers to work with when he came back to the club in 2023. Unfortunately, and as it turns out, Brendan Rodgers said that the deal was pretty much done before or when he joined the club, that Jota was leaving the club to go to Saudi Arabia. We only heard about it maybe about a couple of weeks later. But it's good that that's finally, that wrong is getting righted, and we'll see the two of them work together. And I think we are seeing slowly but surely Jota getting back into the swing of things. He's got a couple of goals, couple of assists here and there, but I think we're still waiting for that breakout game from him to really announce himself back. Jota's a Glasgow derby player. He enjoys playing in these Glasgow derbies, and it wouldn't surprise me if the game he really announces his return is against Rangers, a team that he's had so much joy against in the past. I would not be surprised if he goes out and does the business against Rangers on Sunday afternoon.
I just think that front three in general for Sunday fills me with a lot of confidence. Like, I mean, Kuhn, I thought, looked really good at the weekend, especially in the first half. Obviously, Dies and Maida goes without saying, and Jota has a really good record in this fixture. So you feel good about that front three. In fact, just the team overall, I think. I mean, there's maybe a couple of questions over injuries. Dan just wondering whether Callum McGregor's injured. Callum McGregor's going to make the game. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. And the team, assuming everyone's okay and ready to go, the team, I think, is pretty much nailed on, and we could all recite it. And I just think that's a really strong team. You know, the midfield, I think, in recent weeks, I think Rio Hatate's been pretty good. I thought McGregor at the weekend, again, especially first half, was great. And Engels, you're kind of waiting, because Engels hasn't started a derby yet, has he? Because he came on for his debut in the first one, then he came on at Ibrox as well. So you're looking for him to be a big player. And it has attributes, a bit like Alistair Johnson or someone like that. You would think Engels' attributes would be really suited to the derby on Sunday. So, yeah, I just feel pretty relaxed about this game. I guess as it gets closer to kickoff, I'll get more pumped up and all of that stuff. But I just think I just think Celtic are probably going to do the business, like we tend to do, especially at Celtic Park.
And like they have been doing all season, to be honest with you, this game feels as if it'll never be a friendly or an exhibition between the two sides, but we all know where the league's going at the end of the season, and that's down to the work that Celtic have done both against Rangers earlier on in the season and to every other team in the Scottish Premier League. They had, or the Scottish Premiership rather. They went about and done the business and really made this game, in terms of getting the league done quicker, it's important, but in the grand scheme of things, it's already determined where where the title is going to be retained by Celtic, and that's because they've went about and they've done their business. They've played well in games. They've managed to churn out results in games. Couple that with the fact that Rangers have been horribly inconsistent the whole season. Particularly away from home, although some of that away form has seeped into their home form. I also think it's an advantage that Rangers are playing tonight because they'll have that to focus on. Then they're playing against Celtic on Sunday. I've got no doubt that the better team that Rangers are playing this weekend will be Celtic on Sunday afternoon. Celtic are by far a better team than Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce, so they've got a challenge coming their way when they come to Celtic Park on Sunday. I just believe that Celtic will be up for this. They'll be professional enough. They'll manage to be excited for the game, but also keep that professional head on. They've got a job to do, and in the business end of the season, this team tends to stand up and be counted for and really bring that heat that's needed in these games. Particularly, you think about last season, they did well at this point. Last season, I think Matt O'Reilly really came to the fore at that point. I'm hoping, and you've made the point about Engels. I hope he can have one of those Matt O'Reilly-esque performances, because apart from Matt O'Reilly's first game against Rangers when he just joined the club, there were concerns that he wasn't really impacting the game as well as maybe he should have done, and he was impacting against other teams. It seemed as if he was doing it against every other team in the league apart from Rangers. That's not to say he wasn't performing, but maybe not to the same level of dominating games. Last season, he really did take that step forward. I remember that goal that he scored, or the double that he scored against Rangers at Celtic Park. Something similar from Arne Engels, basically, is what I'm trying to say would be ideal from him to really announce himself. Both Engels and Jota, I think they've both got a point to prove when they play against Rangers. They'll both be keen and itching to really maintain that dominance, both for themselves and for Celtic as a whole. I wouldn't be surprised if either of them or both get on the score sheet on Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to seeing what the two of them can do, and a couple of other players dotted around the team. But it's a team effort. They all need to be on top form, but I'm sure they will be, because I'm confident in this team under this manager.
McLaughlin P's got a feeling Engels is going to score a penalty, perhaps. Who knows? Rangers don't tend to give too many penalties away. Yeah, it's good. Just a couple of other wee bits of news I've just seen over the past hour. So Daizen Maeda and Ryo Hatate have both been called up for Japan. Kyogo, our former player, Kyogo Furuhashi. In case you didn't know who I was talking about when I said Kyogo. In case you've erased him from your memory now, he no longer plays for us. He's been called up as well. They play Bahrain and I can't quite see the edge of that because my laptop's cropped. Some country beginning in S. Any guesses? South Korea, maybe?
Potentially, yeah. I can have a wee look for you.
Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia it is. I just couldn't quite see
bit
the
of a
rest
force
of
in Asia at the moment, Saudi Arabia. I know they've got quite a big say on football and sports in general at the moment, but their football team's pretty good too. Did well in the last World Cup, so that'll be a tough game for Japan. Maybe want to look and keep an eye out on.
Still counting down the days. I've got tickets for Japan coming here. Well, not to Melbourne, but to Perth in June, and I've got tickets for it. Counting down the days to get to see Daizen and Rio. But sorry, Rio, it's mainly about Daizen at the moment with Mo and Eyes. But anyway, that's the next international break. So they've been called up. What did you make of these, or the image that surfaced yesterday of the safety measures at Celtic Park? The cage, I think it's more of a netting than a cage. So the Rangers support are going to be netted in. I think 2,400 of them expected, and it's going to be interesting to see for the final derby of the season at Ibrox what the situation is there. But it kind of brings it home that we're going to be back to the old derby. It'd just be amazing to send them all home miserable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the aim of it. I'm trying to be as professional as possible. I would really like to see
Diplomatic.
Celtic win. Yeah, diplomatic. That's exactly the word I was looking for. Trying to be as diplomatic as possible. But yes, I would like to see a Celtic victory, preferably of the heavier margin, if possible. If Celtic can really hammer it home that they are the dominant force in Scottish football, like we all know that they are, and we know that they've got that performance in them. I think they've got goals in them as well. Dyson Maeda looks bang on form. 27 goals for the season. Jota scored, and Kudin looks back on form as well. It's a potent forward line. You get Adamida that scored off the bench as well. So they're all going in a good place. In terms of the net, I'm just glad that there'll be away supporters at the game, and that'll be reciprocated at Ibrox with away supporters being the Celtic support going to Ibrox. But if this is the way it's got to be, and this is the way that the safety of both supporters, both sides of supporters, and the players on the pitch and officials, then it is what it is. And this is the best way to safeguard that. Then I've got no problems with the nets being on. You see nets all over the world in football. I'm actually quite surprised it's not came in earlier, particularly for a Glasgow derby. But you do see them for the likes of Bayern Munich, etc. You see it in a lot of German football, the way the ball hits. If a ball goes out of play, it doesn't really go out of play, kind of hits the net and stays in. I know it'll go out of play, but it won't really go out of the stadium into the stands. So even if that's only partially in that area, then I've got no issue with it. As long as there's away supporters, away spectators, as we talked about earlier on in the week, I think it adds to the derby, having an away support there at the game. It's a rivalry. It doesn't saturate the game. And yeah, if this is the way to safeguard them, then absolutely. Hopefully it works well and it can stay for the future. The only thing is if the allocation does improve, then you're going to need a bigger net, clearly. So we'll see how that goes.
Do you think the fact as away fans, will it impact the game at all?
Depends. If Rangers score, it won't be silent. That's the thing. It's a bit of a weird one.
Come on, Ryan.
I've just remembered in years gone by, like when Tavernier hits a free kick and it goes in the back of the net. It's a very weird feeling. It's just silence and maybe a bit of groaning from the home support. You get that silence. You don't get any cheering because there's no away support there. Don't know how much of an impact it will have on the game. I hope it'd be a positive one for both the Celtic support and the Celtic players, because they've got not something to aim for, but something to upset and disappoint. That's a direct target to make them as miserable as possible when playing the game. I don't know how much of an impact it will have on proceedings, but I think it'll make the atmosphere better as a result, because I think that will G the Celtic fans on. I think it G'd the Celtic fans on last weekend against Hibs, having a big crowd against them. You need that dynamic in football. The supporters are what make football at the end of the day, and I think this derby is made by the supporters too, just as much as the two teams are, and the history that the two teams have got. I'm happy that the safeguarding has been put in place with regard to the netting. But I just want to see it. I want to see it gone. I want to see Sunday's game going without any hitches and anything like that. Let's see it go. Let's see it go smoothly, and hopefully that 2,500 can be increased as the years go on. I know it's a bit of a big ask, but ideally you'd want it to get back to what it was like before. I know that's a divisive topic. I know people in the comments will be saying don't give them any tickets, but for me, I think the derby's better if it's got both representations of fans in it.
Well, it's certainly Celtic's view that Celtic as a club and Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor and key figures at the club all want to return to that. Whether it does or not, we'll see. But certainly, I just wonder for Sunday if there will be just a little bit more bite to the game. And obviously, there always is because it's Celtic versus Rangers. But maybe some of the other ones recently, and part of this has been we've just been so far ahead of them, but part of them, some of the games I think have maybe just lacked that little bit of intensity that we'd have got at the start of the 21st century. As I say, at that point, the teams were pretty closely matched, and now we're not really. But I'm looking forward to watching it. Actually, I think it's going to just add an extra element, a bit like the Hibs game did on Sunday. Yeah, the usual kind of different viewpoints on this issue. Kieran Tierney came on last night for Arsenal. Sorry, he didn't come on. He started the game, didn't he? He played 80 minutes for Arsenal at left wing. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, there was three left backs playing for Arsenal, starting for Arsenal last night. There was Miles Lewis-Skelly that was playing at left back. You had Alexander Zinchenko playing in midfield. He's played there before. and Kieran Tierney played left wing. I think it was Mikel Moreno, who's normally a midfielder, that played up front for Arsenal, and on the right wing it was Raheem Sterling, who, by all accounts, despite having a really difficult period at Arsenal, he had a really good game last night against PSV. I think the score was 9-3 on aggregate to Arsenal, thanks to their efforts in the first leg against PSV in Eindhoven. But I think that shows you where Kieran Tierney is in terms of the pecking order at Arsenal, in terms of left backs. I know there's injuries all over the team at the moment. That's probably one of the reasons, between that and form, why they're not challenging Liverpool whatsoever for the Premier League title. But to see Kieran Tierney being shoehorned into left wing shows how far away he is from that left back spot at Arsenal. It's probably the reason why he's coming back to Celtic, and that is the exciting part. You know, he's getting game time, but he'll be coming back to Celtic and playing in his ideal position at left back. But they're definitely looking for the future, even by putting Zinchenko in midfield. And I know he can play there. He's played there before for Ukraine. I think he played there a couple of times for Manchester City too. But they're clearly looking at Miles Lewis-Skelly as their future at left back. He's getting a lot of game time for them at the moment. So I think that's where the future lies. Tierney will go back to Celtic. Zinchenko will probably get moved on in the summer, and Lewis-Skelly will be the number one left back. So you've seen that dynamic in full flow last night for Mikel Arteta's side.
Yeah, I think Tierney did pretty well from what we hear. Certainly Joe Cole was talking him up after the game, saying that he acquitted himself very well. I think he was in the end of a pretty rough challenge at one stage as well from Ivan Perisic. And I think at that point, obviously, the tie was pretty much over, and I think there was a bit of a reaction from the Arsenal players. So it is notable to me that Tierney's still loved by his Arsenal teammates and the Arsenal fans. I think still really, really like Kieran Tierney, which says a lot, I think, about him, given that he's had so many issues at Arsenal. I think he's still, held in really high regard there, and he's just going to be a brilliant addition to us. I can't wait to see the thought of him and Schlupp potentially being our left backs next season, if that is possible, and we can sign Schlupp. That's going to be excellent. I mean, I think Hazel was saying earlier that he's quite a big Schlupp fan. As you're saying, can't wait to see Schlupp in the derby. And again, I agree. I just think that'll make a big difference from the past couple of derbies. You're going to have someone like Schlupp who kind of has the physicality, I think, that maybe Greg Taylor lacks at times, in terms of the kind of powerful running, but also the strength as well. And I think that's going to be a big thing on Sunday that we haven't had in the past couple of derbies. I think it was Steve was pointing out yesterday, Engels, as we say, hasn't started either of them. He's going to start on Sunday, and you've got Jota back, and Dyson Maida's playing out of his skin is going to be such a threat for Rangers. So, just get so many positives, I think, ahead of the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think Schlupp, even though sometimes I think his defensive capabilities, top end defensive capabilities, can be questioned ever so slightly. He's more of an attacking fullback than a defensive one, I would say. But he's got a job to do, because he'll be coming up. I think he'll be coming up against Václav Černý at the weekend as well, and he's arguably been Rangers' informed player, not even just this month, but this season. To be honest, he's been one of the main talking about. The Rangers want him permanently, and I'm not sure if they can afford them come the end of the season. I think Wolfsburg are asking for 7-8 million for his services, but he's a danger man. He can shoot from range. He scored. Did he score last time against Celtic? I'm trying to think if he did. I've tried to erase that game from my memory, to be honest. I don't even think I've watched it back. Did he score a rebounded shot? If he did, it wasn't.
First goal was Hadji, and I think Danilo was the last one, so I don't know who scored.
I think he was involved in the first goal, is what I'm thinking about.
Proper, Proper scored.
Yeah, this is Riveting chat, clearly. I should know that as well. But Tierney is their danger man for me, as much as there was a lot of talk before the game about Igaman. He's really went off the boil. Dessers scores goals, but you know what to expect with Dessers. I'd rather he plays than doesn't play, to be honest. But Tierney's the danger man for Rangers. I think if you can stop him, you'll stop a lot of Rangers' forward play, and Schlupp will have a job in his hands to keep him quiet. But I'm sure he can. He's dealt with better before, much better players in the Premier League, so I'd expect him to be up for the task. For me, I think he's playing for a contract in the summer, either at Celtic or somewhere else, because he won't get offered a new deal at Crystal Palace. It's clear that he's not in Oliver Glasner's long-term plans. He just signed a new deal with Crystal Palace, so he'll be at that club for a few seasons longer. So you would expect Schlupp to be exiting in the summer. So because of that, I would say that he's definitely on the lookout for his next club. And I think he'll be hoping it's Celtic, because I think he's got the bug for it already. He's enjoying he's enjoying that first team football. Ever since he came into the team, Greg Taylor's games have been few and far between. Is that maybe because there's an understanding that Greg Taylor's going to leave the club? I know there's been, he's been in the background. His significant other was delivering his first child, so he's had that in his mind too. But Jeffrey Schlupp's been the number one left back for a wee while now, and I don't see why that's going to change for Sunday. I've really enjoyed what he's brought to the team, and long may it continue. Also, just quickly, because he can play in that inverted role, and I'm not so sure that Tierney can play that as well as Schlupp can. Schlupp's got that confidence in playing in midfield. He was that so-called utility player, but he can play in defensive midfield. He's played there for Crystal Palace and Leicester in the past as well. So having that versatility next season could be vital in certain games. Having Tierney for the defensive work plus the going forward, and Schlupp for going forward defensively and for playing inverted fullback, having those options can only help Celtic going forward. And I hope that the two of them are tied down next season, both at Celtic permanently.
Yeah, I mean, I think Greg Taylor's future is something that people would bring up. For me, it's quite simple that Schlupp has come in and performed better than Greg Taylor was. And I think if Schlupp hadn't been signed, or Schlupp hadn't come in and done as well, Taylor would probably have still been playing for us regardless of his contract situation. So I just, Jason saying Schlupp is kind of an upgrade, and I agree. Jerry saying Taylor will get his swan song last league game of the season. Again, I agree, and I hope that is the case, because Greg Taylor, it seems like he's going to be leaving. So Greg Taylor has been and is a good player for Celtic, but personally, I think you've seen in the couple of weeks, or slightly more than that Schlupp has been here, the difference it makes to have a kind of transformational player on the left-hand side. And again, I think Kieran Tierney could even take us a level beyond that. I mean, Tierney's a top left back, like a top European level left back at the top of his game. And I don't want to tempt fate, because I know he's not been playing too often, but he does seem to be coming through games at the moment. Even like last night when he got a bit of a rough tackle. So hopefully that can keep up. But that's our issue for the summer, to look at that. And yeah, just absolutely looking forward to Sunday at this stage. So we'll have press conferences tomorrow. Brendan Rodgers.
Yep, Brendan Rodgers, and I tried to preempt who will be talking to the media ahead of Rangers. You need a strong voice, I think, in the pre-match against Rangers.
McGregor, isn't it?
McGregor, Kasper Schmeichel, Alistair Johnson, one of these leaders, Cameron Carter-Vickers as well. But you even name these guys as being potential press conference, attenders or conductors. They're all leaders. Celtic are full of leaders at the moment. Kasper Schmeichel, look at the amount of games he's played. Look at what he's done in his career. Still starting for Denmark. Callum McGregor was playing for Scotland until very recently. Would still be playing for Scotland if it wasn't for his own decision to retire, I would say. Be one of the first names in Steve Clarke's midfield, in my opinion. That was the case definitely during the Euros, and then the Euros prior to that. Alistair Johnston slowly but surely becoming a leader. And you add Kieran Tierney to that mix as well. He's going to be a leader in the dressing room. You come from Arsenal, you'll command a bit of respect in that dressing room, not only because you're a former Celtic player, Celtic supporter, not a former Celtic supporter, obviously a current Celtic supporter. He's made that very clear in the years since he's departed his team. But having that leader come back into the side, a mature leader, he's not a young boy anymore, 27 years old. He'll bring leadership qualities. That can only add to the team. It's another messenger on the pitch for Brendan Rodgers to use, somebody that understands what Brendan Rodgers will be asking for from new players coming onto the pitch as well, because there will be summer signings as well as Kieran Tierney, you would expect. So many leaders in the team. It bodes well for the future. It's not as if you can grow leaders. They come with time. And by bringing somebody in who can fulfil that role while also being a new signing in the summer, I think it ticks every box for Celtic, having Tierney coming back. So many leaders, but so many people you can rely upon in this team. So yeah, they're in a pretty good place at the moment, Hamish, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff, Ryan. Plenty going on the website as well ahead of kickoff on Sunday. Plenty of previewing to be done. Plenty of news stories happening as well, a few kind of international-based things as well. And we'll keep this going as well. We'll be back this time tomorrow. I will be certainly to continue the build-up to Sunday's derby. So appreciate you sticking with us once again. And yeah, it's much appreciated. Ryan, thanks for your time. Thanks for everyone tuning in. I'll catch